No one heard it.
I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about digital culture.
Thank God. Introduce yourselves.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Milton. All right, we're going to start now. If you're standing in the back, there's a gas that's going to be slowly pumped into the room, and you won't know the antidote unless you sit down and pay attention to what's going on up here. A lot of you are going to die. A lot of you are really you're going to die. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry it had to be this way. All you had to do was pay attention, so it's kind of on you.
Tell them the plane's going down right now.
Yeah, get out. I don't want you in here either. Leave. Yeah, you with the jacket. Get out of here. No, oh shit, he heard me. Well, I was kidding. You can stay. No, you can stay.
Please stay.
Fred and I are thoroughly entertaining.
So far.
Oh shoot, wow. Well, now we have to actually talk about stuff. So really quickly, I'm Chris Hardwick, founder and chief creative officer of Nerdist Industries. My partner, CEO of Nerdist Industries, Peter Levin, was on the previous panel. And that's it. I host shows and I do stand-up, and we run a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Nerdist. Fred.
I'm Fred Seibert. I'm executive producer at Frederator Studios and Cartoon Hangover, a YouTube channel that has yet to launch, 2 weeks. And we produce Adventure Time for Cartoon Network and The Fairly Odd Parents for Nickelodeon and other kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess basically we were just going to have a general conversation about digital culture and the way the web and that sort of thing. So I think what a lot of people might not know is that Fred and I both came from a traditional media background and saw what sort of looked like the promised land in terms of digital culture and producing web content.
No notes.
No notes.
Right. Now we're the people who give notes.
I know. Do you give notes to people?
I actually do.
Yeah.
It's really frightening. But I try really hard not to.
Yeah.
I would rather that the ship sank because I didn't give notes than to give notes.
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of cases I sort of take on a role of kind of a consultant, and we tell our creators, you know, like the Louis C.K. show is a perfect example of like how a show can work when you empower the right creator.
Absolutely.
And so the problem with traditional media and television, even though I love working in television, is that the infrastructures are so large that they employ so many people that it's just too top-heavy to really foster the creative process in any kind of efficient or good way.
Well, you know, it's a really interesting thing, having been on the executive side of television, is people seem to feel that because they're being paid, they're supposed to have an opinion.
Right.
And so everyone in the process, every time they hire someone new, they think they're supposed to say something. And it took me 20 years to figure out that they're paying me to say nothing. Mm-hmm. And that the less I said, the more successful everyone became, and I realized that's why they paid me.
Yeah.
But most people don't really.
No, I mean, you have to imagine, imagine what would have happened if, you know, any great painting, let's say like, you know, the Mona Lisa, if you had 10 network people all had a brush in their hand, and everyone took a swipe at it, it would look like a piece of shit by the end.
Or Lois Lane.
Or It would just look brown. It would just be this kind of like murky brown.
With a really big smile.
With a huge smile, more cleavage. Network note. But I really think that this sort of digital frontier has, and in a lot of ways, I get angry at television. They go, "You are shooting yourselves in the foot." The same way that cable now dominates the Emmys. Because people got to go to cable to not have to deal with network stuff, now people are doing the same with web culture.
Well, you know, it's interesting, since I started in cable, and we didn't know how to give notes, you know, we started, so we really just had to find people and like pray that they were going to do something good.
Yeah.
And that went on for years. Somebody just this morning said to me, "Oh, right, the golden age of Nickelodeon." You know, where, you know, John Cristofalusi could make Ren and Stimpy, and the Klasky Chubo people could make Rugrats. And no one knew how to give notes, so they just said, "What do you want to do?" And they let them do it.
Yeah.
And now everyone feels the need, and so this is the promised land in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and also in a lot of niche cable channels and internet. The fact is that there just aren't the budgets to hire 10 people and have 10 development people and 5 production people and VPs of whatever departments. So
Yeah.
it really is, you're working with the bare bones, like that actually is a benefit to the process.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm a producer, so I don't, unlike you, I don't actually make anything personally. And so people are always coming in pitching me, and at least half the time I go, why do you want me to do it? Like, why don't you just do it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why do you want to listen to me? Because I'm gonna give you some money and I'm gonna feel the need to say something to you. Why don't you just do it yourself and then come back when it works?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's too freaked out because they've spent their whole lives hearing about pitching,
Yeah.
and they think they're supposed to pitch. They think that that is sort of the thing that makes them official and real, instead of understanding that they can go and succeed. I'm having a panel on Saturday night with animation people from around the world that are on YouTube. And one of them is this thing called Simon's Cat, you know, Simon's Cat. It's a black and white little animation. It's silent, and it's basically Simon and his cat that annoys him. And I was saying, and I love Simon's Cat, they do a great job. I don't really care about cats one way or the other, but I love like what Simon has done in these films. And I was saying to the guy yesterday, you know, I never would have greenlit this. If he had pitched it to me, I would have said no.
Right.
That's the whole promise of this world, is that he did it because he felt like doing it. He didn't expect to get an audience. He doesn't follow any rules. In fact, all those rules that my friends wrote about how to succeed on YouTube,
Yeah.
he has ignored all of them. and he's one of the top 100 channels in the world.
Well, it's sort of like, you know, in the old days, well, even still in traditional media, or in the old days, you pitch a show and someone sits across the desk from you, and there's this whole, it's like trying to explain the dimension of time to someone, because you have this idea in your head, and you hope that your words will accurately express that, and that they'll be in the right frame of mind, and they didn't have a fight with their wife that day, you know? And so now you can just make it and go, no, this is what I meant, and then people really understand. There's so much. People think that, are you guys creators, or what's the sort of, so a lot of people look at YouTube and they look at television, they go, oh, well they're the same because it's a visual medium, but that's like saying that that Americans are the same as Brits because we both speak kind of the same language. It's like they're so fundamentally different, and what people really need to understand about how YouTube works is that television can be passively consumed, but YouTube web videos, that whole ecosystem relies on sharing. Right. It only works if people are actively engaged, and no video ever blew up by not being shared. Like something special has to make people go, holy crap, I've got to send this to everyone I know, and that's the only way YouTube works.
Well, the interesting thing is what's going to happen when the next YouTube comes along, because, you know, we're, in my opinion, a few years away from the half-life of YouTube. Mm-hmm. There's some 15-year-old out there who hates something about YouTube.
Right. We
don't know what it is, because it's only something that makes that person really mad. And they're not really adept enough to create the next thing, but they're going to. It's going to solve some problem that none of us understood, but one of the things that is going to be common is that sharing thing. So even if now the new Sopranos comes to a web platform, all of a sudden it becomes shareable.
Right.
Can you imagine what would happen that first night if the first Sopranos episode was shareable?
Right.
It would have blown up way bigger, faster to more people.
Well, it's also going to rely a lot on the delivery system being easy and manageable for most consumers. As soon as, obviously, nerds know, like, of course you can access the web. Soon, I'm sure soon Xbox will have a browser, and, but you can share, but you can get web content on Xbox or Roku or Apple TV, but as soon as there is a delivery device that makes it easy for every consumer to flip a channel and just be on the web, when houses have just one cable going into their house, then that's when everything's really going to change, and I think that's why it's really important to start kind of building that up for that inevitable change.
Yeah, because then we're also moving from a level, so when I say what I'm about to say, don't take it too clearly, too personally. I don't like YouTube, I don't like Netflix, but I didn't used to like Blockbuster either. I hate videos.
Okay.
Right? I love television. I love just going in and turning it on, and somebody's doing a lot of work for me to make me happy.
Well,
right?
yeah,
And that's what a programmer does.
But what's smart, but still, you still feel that way because, you know, you have such a relationship with television, but you're still smart enough to know, but I do reckon, like, but a lot of the old media is still holding on to, like, no, we can make it work, like the record industry.
Well, that's what I find is in my transition, you know, from old, I didn't transition because I still do old, so I do old and new, is that 90% of what was really valuable and interesting to me in old media is still really valuable in new media.
Yeah.
But all of my friends in the old media are focused really heavily on that 10% that doesn't matter. Right? They're obsessed with monetization.
Sure.
They're obsessed with time slots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're obsessed with production values. They're obsessed with all sorts of things. Whereas if they really thought about what they did for a living, it transfers over incredibly well, and therefore it's going to translate backwards, right?
Yeah.
Video is going to become television as soon as people figure out the technology that allow it to happen.
It could be the last great Steve Jobs project. You know, the big Apple television.
That's what everyone has said, right?
I wonder if in the music business there was any like record label that just like in Titanic just started playing their instruments and went, "Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure," as they all just sank into the abyss.
I think a lot of them individually did and like just couldn't come out loud and say it.
Well, there's a real opportunity now for people who are creative types. First of all, technology has equalized everything. You can make whatever you want pretty much and have it look fantastic. You don't need a ton of money anymore.
Have you seen this movie Waiting for Sugar Man?
Oh no!
You know about this?
Yeah, about the singer that they found. Yeah.
So, quick story is a Detroit singer put out 2 albums in the early '70s, sunk without a trace, and somewhere in South Africa, over the last 30, 40 years, he's become a superstar.
His songs have become like it's just like these anthems.
It's unbelievable.
And he had no idea he was working construction.
Yeah, I recommend this movie. It's a documentary about finding this guy. So anyway, I saw a little interview on 60 Minutes the other night, and the guy shot most of the movie on his iPhone.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
And I saw the thing in a theater, and I had no notion that it was shot any differently than any other film that I'd seen.
And there's a real opportunity now for people because television, it's like what you said struck me, where the television, the big media right now is going, well, how do you monetize this? How do you monetize this? That's the question they're asking, and it's the wrong question. What they mean is, how do you monetize this in the short term? And it is difficult to monetize in the short term unless you're like an Epic Mealtime, where basically your whole YouTube entity is one show that costs nothing. They have ancillary income, they sell t-shirts, they do ads and that sort of thing. But I feel like it's the wrong frame of mind right now. Like, bottom line thinking is not you have got to build your thing, build your brand, get your audience, and then you can worry about monetizing. They want to monetize it without an audience yet.
I'll tell you a really interesting thing. So 15 years ago, I was running the Hanna-Barbera studios, the famous cartoon studios, for Ted Turner, who owned it for a period of 6 or 7 years before he sold his company to Time Warner.
Yeah.
And in 1995, I was sitting and arguing with cable accountants about making an original cartoon series on Cartoon Network, but it's not going to monetize. We've done the 10-year projections, and it's not going to make its money back. And I said, how can it not make its money back? It's going to be popular. How do you know it's going to be popular? Well, we've piloted it, we've shown it, people love it. It will make money. If things are popular, we'll figure out a way to make money. If you don't make all the money on Cartoon Network, we'll sell it somewhere else. That's how nobody makes money in their first run.
Right.
Mad Men doesn't make money in its first run. The Sopranos didn't make money in its first run. That's not how you make money. You make money by making great things, and if you've made something great, there's a way to make money from it.
Yeah,
always.
like, you know, I do a podcast, and, you know, the podcast didn't make money for the first, I don't know, year, maybe year and a half, because I didn't care. I just thought, you know what, let's get an audience, and then once we have an audience, why would we not be able to, I mean, like, if the whole point of advertising is we want to put our product in front of a group of people, and then you can go, well, I have a group of people, and there's a lot of them. What else? I know who they are. We all like the same things. What else do you need to know about this?
Well, I was listening to your podcast, and I found out about this sitcom that you did, you know, back in the day for UPN.
Oh, yes.
And that wasn't that long ago.
No.
And now all of a sudden you're somebody to reckon with because you did a podcast that nobody knew how to monetize.
Take that, UPN.
Totally. Right, I mean, you turn yourself into a star.
Well,
It's an amazing proposition that you can do now.
well, for me, it was, I was just frustrated by years of failure in the television business and being told when I could work and why I could get hired for things. You don't look this enough, or you're not this enough, and so I don't know, there's something about me where I'm like, all right, I'll show you. And so it's really just me trying to I just need to have control of what I do, and so that's all it was. It was just trying to create something that no one else could touch.
Look, great artists are the only ones who can see around the corner. And those great artists can be, performing artists, they can be drawing artists, they can be business artists. They're the ones who can see the future. They're the only people who can see the future. But all these people have been put in the gatekeeper slot, and they actually think that they're supposed to see the future.
Right.
Have you ever pitched anything where somebody didn't tell you were wrong? I've never, ever made a pitch where I was told that I was wrong. Maybe I told that I was right. No one ever agrees.
No, they always want to sort of keep you, and a lot of times is that these creative people that, not everyone, but a lot of people in these creative positions were like marketing people, or they were someone's assistant, and then that person left, and then they got promoted, and now it's like, you're the gatekeeper that I have to get through?
The CEO of the #1 cable network started as an assistant in her company.
Right.
And she still has all of the skills she had when she was an
Are you
assistant.
talking about Sue?
But it's a really, this world that we live in now, nobody has to listen to anybody. They can be right or wrong on their own.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible, incredible opportunity. I know, just since we're in Comic Land, the biggest source I'm getting for new shorts that I'm making for Cartoon Hangover are webcomics.
Right.
I'm going right there. I'm going right to people who created their thing with no intermediation, because that's the business that I'm in, is finding talent that can succeed without me and praying that they want to be in business with me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not interested in telling anybody what I want. If I knew what I wanted, would I have ever made Adventure Time?
Right.
Like, who knew? Only Penn Ward knew that that was magic.
And there's a certain amount of trust that's involved. But now it's the only thing holding people back is this weird idea in their head of the infrastructure that they think they have to be a part of in order to get their thing made, that they have to go into some machine, and you really don't. It is, with YouTube and digital culture, it really is the closest thing to like a true artistic meritocracy that we have, where good stuff will find an audience, and there's just no barrier anymore.
Well, it's interesting because that was the premise of Image Comics, 15, 20 years ago, right? That the artists would have control of their universe, but they didn't realize often the magnitude of the part of the non-artistic universe that they had to deal with.
Yeah.
Now, in a world where you can put up your own Tumblr, or you can put up your own WordPress, with a comics theme or something like that, it is literally, you don't need to know all that much to succeed.
Right.
You just need to be good. Because in this sharing culture, I don't know about you, but the best thing that happens to me in a day is when I have found something great and I can tell someone else about it, because they think I'm better because I showed them something.
Right.
Right? And when the whole world now operates on that thing, I can be a star maker.
Mm-hmm.
Right? With my little group of friends, I can be the first one to show them the cool stuff that's happening.
Yes.
And then within my group of friends, we're all competing to be the ones to find the next cool thing.
Yeah.
And that's
It's a weird currency now. It's
really
like a
is.
weird popularity currency.
Well, it's kind of like, in the old days, Wall Street jokes.
Right.
Right? Like, that's how all the traders, they didn't judge themselves by how much money they made, but whether they were the first ones on a joke. Right? And we're sort of like back to that, but now everyone can participate in that process.
Yeah. So, I think you look at a show like here's a perfect example of how quickly stuff happens with our YouTube channel. We have a show on right now called Fangoria's Blood and Guts with Scott Ian, who's in Anthrax, the band Anthrax. And so my partner Peter and I met with Fangoria magazine, and we said we really want to we both kind of had this mutual, we've got to do something together on the YouTube channel. Within 15 minutes we were like, well, let's do a makeup effects show. Then within 20 minutes I was like, my friend Scott is really into horror makeup effects, maybe he'll host it. So I texted him, I was like, hey, do you want to host a makeup effects show for Fangoria? And he wrote back and he was like, sure. And then within a half hour, we had a show. 2 days later, the press release went out, and now the show got made. It's amazing. You know, the show's doing great on the channel.
You gonna do 20 others?
I don't of his.
No, makeup shows. I think that you could you could have a whole network of just makeup.
Of just makeup shows, yeah.
Of monster makeup.
You really
shows.
could, because
totally.
you could do, you could do one that you're just a channel of zombie makeup. You could do a channel of like robot building and future. You could do any kind of makeup, like Michelle Phan.
Well, I was gonna say, if you just see what's going on the women's makeup and beauty side,
Yeah,
monster makeup is just like the boy equivalent,
yeah.
right? So there can be really, I think you could do dozens of shows on specialties.
Here's how sobering it is when on YouTube when you realize like, oh shit, that's real. We made this video. One of our partners on the Nerdist channel is the Jim Henson Company, and so I met with Lisa Henson about 5 weeks ago, and she said, well, you know, we want to help more. We want to contribute more. What of ours do you want to use? Do you want, you know, we have Dark Crystal, we have the Fraggles, and I was like, wow, I'd really love to do something with the Fraggles. So my friend Ben Folds was releasing a new album, so I called him. I was like, do you want us to make a video for you with Fraggles? And he was like, sure. So within 3 weeks, we made a new Fraggle Rock video with Ben Folds,
Fantastic.
which, you know, it's got like 1 million views or whatever. But then when you start looking around YouTube, there's a girl who, it's like a 5-minute video on how she made herself up to look like Princess Jasmine or something. 16 million views. I'm like, God damn it, that's all. All I needed was a webcam and an eyeliner, and I could have had 16 million.
By the way, you should do a whole show that is just every director in Hollywood and how they would make Dark Crystal.
Oh, that's a great idea.
They all want to do it.
Yeah.
Right, a guy that I do movies with was slated to do a new Dark Crystal, Gendy Tartakovsky.
Of course,
Right,
yes. It's Invader Zim.
But yeah, every director wants to do Dark Crystal. You could just like every week just interview different directors and like what their take on the movie would be. And then Lisa can find the best one and sell it.
Yep.
That's a great idea. Or we should actually just have them kind of narrate and then like create it. And
Yeah.
in some cases it might be animated.
That'd be awesome.
And in other cases, you know.
There's so many people who love Dark Crystal.
Oh, that's a really great idea. Yeah, my girlfriend and I went to that. There's a Labyrinth of Jareth ball in Los Angeles, which is this like huge masquerade ball, and you go and you have to be in some sort of a cosplay, and it's really fantastic. And there's like 1,000 people in the most elaborate cosplay you've ever seen, and like David Bowie guy, Jareth guys walking around with the crystal ball.
Now I'm really pissed off. I should have thrown an Adventure Time cosplay party. Because, I mean, right over the next 3 days, there are going to be more Adventure Time. It's like sort of that secret cosplay at Comic-Cons.
Yeah.
There's more Adventure Time than anywhere else.
This, by the way, is how a lot of stuff happens on the channel. It's just you just sit and you kick ideas around, but most of the time, most people go, but we could never do that. But the difference between the people who succeed is they go, well, why couldn't we do that? Why not?
Exactly. And it's so simple. Again, you know, somebody's taping us on their iPhone right now, and that tape is, well, it's not even taping, right? They're capturing us on their iPhone.
Yes.
And that's movie quality,
Mm-hmm.
right? The fact that we happen to show it in a really small browser window is, I don't know why we show it in a little browser window where we could make it into a movie.
You could now,
It's
yeah.
like, it's unbelievable.
I don't know if this would be a great movie.
Well, you would be a great movie.
Really?
Stab.
Done! I go into the ceiling.
16 million views.
Wouldn't that be amazing? If we were just giving a regular talk, and then I stabbed you and shot a grappling hook and then just went into the ceiling vent. People were like, I didn't see, holy shit, I didn't see that coming! They were talking about digital culture, it was mildly amusing,
And then he was dead.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrible, but it was pretty awesome. The bummer thing is, like, that would be the most views of anything. Like, oh, I tried to make all this comedy, all I had to do was stab Fred on camera. It's kind of like, there's a really great Human Giant sketch where Rob Hubel plays this guy who cuts off his penis on YouTube and gets like 100 million views. And then Aziz Ansari is the next video the next day of a guy who just makes crazy faces. He's like, ooh, ooh. And Rob Hubel's like, I cut off my dick, you don't eat. He's like, yeah, but look at me, I'm crazy. Like, that's just what, it's just YouTube for you. That's just the way it works.
Unbelievable.
That's probably on YouTube as well. by the way.
Now I'm
You should look it up.
humiliated again because I'm not clever.
What? No, what are you talking
I'm a good
about?
audience, I'm a straight man.
Adventure Time is how do you, because I don't think it's really necessarily one medium versus another medium, but figuring out ways to integrate them better for this inevitable
Well, Adventure
merging.
Time's my real, I started doing stuff on the web in 2003, but Adventure Time is where like life really took on a different dimension because we started blogging we were making 40 shorts for Nickelodeon, right? They were like all essentially pilots to figure out what our next series would be. And we started on our blog, we started a separate blog for each one of the shorts, just in production, when that was sort of a fresh kind of approach. And Adventure Time, Penn Ward was the one guy that just didn't want to blog, right? So he would reluctantly once a month put a post up. And when the short was done, it was made for Nickelodeon, but we were up for an award, a CIFA award, the Animation Oscars, the Annie Award, and it was the first year you could vote online, so I asked Nickelodeon for permission to put it online so people could vote. So I put it on the blog on a Friday afternoon, and it was a holiday weekend, and on Tuesday morning my development colleague calls me up and he goes, okay, I have good news and bad news. I said, okay, what's the bad news? He said, well, Viacom has issued a copyright takedown. We'd put on Google Video, and they took it off. I said, okay, then what's the good news? He goes, we got 250,000 views over the weekend, which this is in 2006.
Oh, wait a minute,
right?
so, okay, so you got all these views, and that's interesting, a large company yanked, tried to kill that.
Right, because of their suit, right, that they had launched with Google
Right.
already and YouTube.
Because they weren't making 2 cents a video
Right.
of review.
And I expected to get 5,000 views of the thing, so that maybe we could get voted on for the award, which, by the way, eventually it didn't get.
Right.
And by the end of the week, it had been downloaded from the original Google site, so people were putting up bootlegs of it on YouTube. And all of a sudden, it's getting hundreds of thousands. I mean, we literally are doing nothing, right? It's just going.
By the way, I feel bad for anyone leaving right now who's not going to hear the secret to longer lasting erections.
So,
oh, he's staying. Oh.
So, within a couple of weeks, I'm making a pitch to Nickelodeon to do it as a series, which, by the way, they didn't do 5 times. And by the time we make the pitch, we have 200 pieces of fan art.
Oh my God.
This is a 6-minute cartoon that's made for children at a moment in YouTube history where there were no children watching, right? It was all like nerds, right? It was 15-year-old nerds who were watching the thing. The thing has gathered up unbelievable steam, and every time I went into one of the 5 pitches to Nickelodeon, it had another 1 million views.
Jeez.
Right? It just kept going.
What do you think it is about Adventure Time specifically? Is it just sort of a lightning in the bottle thing?
It is lightning in a bottle, but the conclusion that I've come to, which is very esoteric, is I think that Penn is the first filmmaker that I know that is more influenced by video games than by films. And there's something about the way he tells stories that fits the cultural head of people who grew up with video games. So it's almost like a 10-year-old, right? When you play a video game, you go on, you have no idea how to play it, so you kind of fumfer around trying to figure out how it works.
Yeah.
Until you kind of find your way in the game after you've died a couple times and you started the game over again and all that, and you just kind of go into the game. Well, if you watch a great Adventure Time episode, you have no idea what's going on for the first 3 or 4 minutes. It's a bunch of non sequiturs. There's characters that come from nowhere.
A lot of beautiful color. It's just beautiful to look at, too.
Well, it's gorgeous, right? But interesting, if you look at the original short, Penn has a very unique, relatively primitive style. In fact, the major reason that people said no to the show is because of his drawing style.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, oh, that's not a cartoon. I didn't want to do it because it didn't look like a cartoon to me. It looked like a student film, right? It was like everything about it was kind of off, except that it worked. So he meanders through story, and before you know it, the story has begun, and you have to rewind it to find out where it began. And to me, head-wise, it's exactly what goes on in video games. Let's leave out the direct video game references that he puts into the show. I think his storytelling doesn't follow any of those rules, but there's still great characters and ultimately great stories.
Yeah.
But we fought with the network for a year, who kept trying to push it into, but this is the way you tell a story. You start here, you go there, you go there, you go. And luckily, Penn actually didn't know how to fight with them, and he kept trying to do what they wanted, but he just couldn't help himself. But anytime he'd like come to a particular place, he'd make a rapid left turn in the story, and eventually they kind of gave up.
Yeah.
And then it got good ratings, and then they really gave up. Like,
Wow.
okay, he seems to know something, right? But it's a really interesting thing. He tells stories differently than anyone else.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I can't explain it. I don't tell him what to do. Back when I tell him what to do, luckily he doesn't listen to me, right? It's the best way to be.
I guess it is sort of like in the early days of rock and roll. If someone's like, no, that's not how you do a song. You gotta have a.
But that's really what happened. That's my nerdism, is like the early days of making records.
Yeah.
And you hear it all the time, you know, of the people there. I mean, there were famous stories of Leonard Chess, you know, a Polish immigrant going in and tell Muddy Waters how to do the blues. And I was like, unbelievable. But, you know, whatever. These things, sometimes they happen that way. But, you know, the truth is, I would go in with Adventure Time with millions of views, and they go, well, we can't do the show. And they give this whole set of reasons that they couldn't do the show. And finally, at Cartoon Network, the guy said, well, we can't do this show. I said, do you see how many people have seen this? And they go, yes, so? I'm like, that's more viewers than you have. Yes, so? I said, just do me a favor. Bring it home. You have kids who are in high school and college. Will you just play it for them once? I guarantee you'll come back and buy it.
Even if I don't understand something, if you look at it and go, well, 10 million people watch this, like how could you not even then?
Well, when I didn't want to do it, the way my development executive got me, when we came in to look at the pitches of the day, what we were going to do, what we were going to do, I said, well, we can't do that. We don't do art films here. He goes, we have to do it. I go, why do we have to do it? He goes, well, you laughed in the pitch, and it wasn't that fake laugh you usually have. And boom, I'm busted, like right there. Right, I had to do it at that point. I didn't have a lot of expectation for it. Honestly, when you're making 50 of anything, you just kind of pray that one of them will be good enough.
Yeah.
In that case, we had 4 or 5 that were good enough, and we made a couple other series that came from it. But you don't know magic ahead of time. You just like have to look in somebody's eye and go like, maybe they got it.
Well, there's so much trying to
Second
program a second guess, trying to program ahead of the audience. It's like when you hear about how they make South Park, they go, well, they record, and then when Matt and Trey laugh, then they leave it.
Well, that was my point. That was my guy's point, right? Which is, I've seen enough. I've seen thousands of pitches, and eventually you do just have to fake laugh because you want the people to feel good in the room. You don't want to like make them feel bad that you're not laughing. You kind of want to be with them and give them every kind of support that you can. So the rare times you catch yourself actually laughing, you gotta like make a note of it,
Right.
because those are the people who are magic.
Is there? Does anyone have any questions? Are there any? We'll keep talking, but just if there are questions that can sort of. Yes, Sarah in the back.
Yeah, honestly, I hear what you're saying about television being passive and YouTube, obviously needing to be shared. But I also wonder if that impacts the length of something, because I do an audio podcast and I do one-on-one interviews, and I like getting in depth and doing long form. And it just seems like YouTube and video online being locked into your, either your handheld device or your laptop means that long form is the wrong place.
Well, let's separate online and web, because they're really different, right? So most of us get Netflix streaming over the internet,
Right.
but we don't get it in a browser. And remember that YouTube at the moment, and I only stress at the moment because they're constantly changing things, we generally watch it in a browser, which encourages us to browse.
Okay.
The length of something only determines whether it's any good or not. And if it's good and it's an hour long, we're gonna stick with it. We stick with Chris's podcast because he just won't let us go, right? No, but I'm serious, like you put the earphones in, I listen to it always, when I'm walking around, and you just can't hit stop because he doesn't give you a breath to hit stop with. And to me, that's what makes the difference. When we did Adventure Time, the average thing on YouTube was 2 minutes long, and it was 7. And that's why I really didn't expect it to get any views, because in those early days of YouTube where the technology couldn't handle longer things really well, people had created a habit of showing really, really short things. All of a sudden, people were sticking through it and they watched it. It is the quality of the experience that makes us stay long, not the actual length.
Yeah.
Because something good, we don't notice that it's long or short.
Our programming mandate at our channel is like things are only as long as they need to be. And so the 21, 22 minute model is for television, and that's, you don't have to program that way. We're doing Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's going to be a half-hour show, because I feel like his audience will be engaged for a half hour. While it's true that I think people's attention spans are shorter, I think what that really means is that they're just impatient when they see things they don't like. And so I think it drives creators to make compelling programming for longer. I mean, you can tell right away, like I'll watch cuts of shows all the time and I'll go, my mind started to drift at 6 minutes. So you just get a sense of like, it feels 2 minutes too long. Like I do a bowling show, a celebrity bowling show, and in the beginning I had this thing where I was like, it can't be any longer than 6 minutes. And we started watching it, and they were like, this cut's 8 minutes, but I think it's watchable. And I watched it, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it works for 8 minutes. The material will reveal how long it needs to be when you watch it, and you really will get a sense of like, that didn't need to be that long, or wow, you know what, I wanted to see a couple minutes more.
Well, Neil's a great example, right? The second he opens your mouth, you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
He has a voice that makes you pay attention.
Star Talk. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
And I want to know what was in that family, because his brother's the same way. Second he opens his mouth, like, okay, I don't like half of what he says, and I don't care. Because he's like got such a compelling presence about him.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
The only thing I was gonna say is, quickly, video versus audio, because you guys are talking 20 minutes or a half hour, and there are creators here will tell you, I'll go for over an hour. And it's just like, it's Charlie Rose.
But all you have to do is look at, he was saying that in audio and video they might be different in this. All you have to do is see the explosion in comedians doing their own podcasts, which has opened up new avenues, new stars. I had someone come in, a comedian come in the other day who I really wanted to have her make a cartoon for me.
Yeah.
She said, I'm sorry, I'm concentrating on my podcast, I'm not doing anything else. Because that medium has become so vibrant for the comedy community. It has changed the trajectory of the comedy community in a way that nothing since The Tonight Show in 1963 has.
Well, podcasts are the new comedy albums.
Absolutely.
And audio is just easier for people to consume than video, because people can listen to it while they're doing other things. They listen to it on the bus, they listen to it on the treadmill, they listen to it while they're doing work they hate. So, video just requires a little more focus, which some people just don't have as many parcels of that time in their day. Although, I will say, here's something I recommend that all of you do, just for fun. In a day, bring a stopwatch with you, or just download or just use the app on your iPhone. Every time you start doing a different thing in your day, time it. Because then you can map out, you go, did I really spend 2 hours on Wikipedia? It's you don't realize how much time you're spending on things. And once you track all of your time into a day, you can start to manipulate it and really gain control of your schedule. This is that's just a little efficiency tip. Little time management system there. But it really will surprise you how much time, because most of us think, shit, I don't have time for anything. And then you realize, oh, actually, I have 3 hours where I wasn't doing anything.
Well, the average American spends 6 hours watching television a day.
Yeah.
That tells us something about our time management.
Yeah, well, and I think, tell me if you guys have had this experience lately where you go, okay, so it's a perfect example. We're at New York Comic Con 2012. Don't a lot of you just feel I feel like it was just New York Comic Con 2011. What happened in the last year? And what I figured out is humans have this desire or this innate need to distract themselves at all times from themselves. And so, now that we have smartphones and we can basically consume non-stop, we're constantly distracted and we are literally not aware of the passage of time. If you go sit in a cabin for a weekend, you become very aware of the passage of time. And so because we are constantly distracting ourselves, we lose like giant swaths of time.
Is the next Nerd Show a philosophy show?
It's not a philosophy
Yeah,
show.
Okay, we're sort of out of time.
Oh, okay.
You guys are
2 more hours?
But what's the secret of longer lasting erections?
Next time.
So earnest too.
New York Comic Con 2013.
Next year, 2013, Fred Seibert and I do the pre-show erection panel. It's going to be great. Bring notes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I'm bringing you to every panel.
Oh, please, let's do panels.